What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back. Today we're going to discuss about the ban list. In about a month from now we're going to get a new list, and honestly, with how the game has been going lately, with how balanced the format has been, it's very difficult to talk about what Konami should do or predict what Konami might do to make the game even better, because it just doesn't need to happen right now. I feel like even if we don't get anything for a ban list, the game is perfectly fine until something new and something broken comes out, but right now there's nothing absolutely broken, so I'm just going to discuss about a couple changes that might happen preemptively, or some changes that need to happen or might not need to happen, but mostly this list is going to be full of cards that are not going to get hit on the list but are going to possibly come back from the list, because when you have a format like this, the only way to make it better is not to hit cards but just give it more variety by bringing stuff back. So this is my opinion about what Konami might possibly do to the next list. So if you have any other suggestions or other ideas of what might happen in the next list, comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content, and now let's get to the video. So for banned cards, I have only one banned card, and that's Predaplant Verte Anaconda. Now, I have talked about Dragoon before, and I was about the idea that Red Eyes Fusion was the correct hit if something needed to be addressed about Dragoon, but the thing is, back then we didn't have knowledge about what was going to happen during the Burst of Destiny set, and now that we know that a card like Destroy Phoenix Enforcer is coming out, it just proves that Konami has not learned their lesson, and it's about time that Verto is going to fall into the category of those generic Link monsters that were good and healthy at the time of the release, but eventually, because of future cards, they're going to be a bad design. So yeah, I think Verto is going to go, because Dragoon, while it was not the most broken thing ever, Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, as not as impressive as it is, it just gives you a lot more utility, and Fusion Destiny is just a card that gives you so much more freedom compared to a card like Red Eyes Fusion, so it's going to see a lot more play because people just don't like drawing Red Eyes Fusion because they either have to choose to do their own thing or just do the Red Eyes Fusion if they draw it. So yeah, this is why I think Anaconda is just going to go, because if you play an engine with Fusion Destiny or Red Eyes Fusion, you're playing 3 good cards and 2 bricks, so out of these 5 cards you have a 60% chance of drawing a good card and a 40% chance of drawing a brick, which is perfectly fine because only decks like Subterror and stuff like that are going to play Red Eyes Fusion and Dragoon, and of course Dark Magician after Anaconda gets banned, and Fusion Destiny is going to see a lot of play even without Anaconda, so banning this card preemptively is not going to hinder Burst of Destiny's sales whatsoever. The card is still going to be insane. People in the OCG are playing even 3 Fusion Destiny just because it is a good card to draw. It doesn't restrict you as much as Red Eyes Fusion. You can do your thing and then slap during the end the Fusion Destiny, and you have a really good monster on the field and 2 really good utility cards in the graveyard. So yep, I think Anaconda is going to go, just because we know that this might happen again and again and again in the future. As long as it's around, there's always the chance that cards like these are going to be splashed. So yeah, Anaconda, I think it's time to go. Now for the limited section, I only have one card that should get hit, and this is because out of every deck in the format, the one that just keeps showing a lot of numbers, pretty much 90% of the events in the top cards that we see, is Tri-Brigade. Usually with Zodiac, but Zodiacs have already been addressed. If they want to address Zodiac, they're going to hit Zeus, which I'm pretty sure that they are going to do it, but not yet. We'll just have to wait for the Megatons first, wait for these to sell, and then they're going to hit Zeus in the future. But for now, I think the card that should go to 1 is Fractal. Now, a lot of people have been debating Tenki, and I don't think that Tenki deserves to get hit again. It has pretty much this notorious feeling of a card that gets hit for the wrong reasons a lot of times, and then it just keeps coming back at 3, and then something else comes out that makes it good, and then it gets hit over and over again. Yeah, it basically is a card that just cannot rest. So I think this is not reason to do it again, so just hit the card that searches, so that Tenki searches. So Fractal going to 1, it's not going to kill the deck. The deck is going to be really, really good, and as a deck and as an engine, it just makes it so that you have to either hard draw this one Fractal or make sure your Tenki resolves, because now if you activate Tenki and your opponent uses Ass, it's a really good chance that you already have a Fractal in your hand, so you can use that. So yeah, but if you only have one Fractal, then the chance of you having that one Fractal is not very high. So this is why I think this is the most logical hit right now to do for Tri-Brigades. If they still keep coming up as much as they are right now, then maybe we'll need to hit them again. But for now, let's just do this. It's a slight slap on the wrist, so we can see if it goes down a lot or a little, and then we kind of adjust accordingly. But even without any hits, Tri-Brigade, I don't think it's an unfair deck. It's just that the deck that has the most representation, so it's obviously the target for the next ban list. Now, from here on out, I am just going to discuss cards that should come off the list. There is nothing else that I think that should get hit. I think the format is perfectly fine with just these 2 hits to make sure that the best deck is a little bit checked, and and that future stuff are not going to be problematic, that's perfectly fine. Now, the rest of the cards are just cards that should come off. So, first of all, for the listing unlimited section, we have Blaster. So, Blaster, out of all the Dragon Rulers that are left, Blaster and Redox are okay to come back. Tidal, that's a big if, because it does promote a little bit of unhealthy effect because of the Foolish Burial effect, so that could be a big problem in the right scenarios. But Blaster and Redox, they're perfectly fine. But let's be honest, they are not going to give us two Dragon Rulers on the same list. So if we're talking about Blaster and Redox, which one seems the weakest? Definitely Blaster, because a pop, nowadays, that doesn't do anything. It's just going to see play in decks like Salamangreat or other stuff that play fire monsters. It's just going to be a decent engine card for fire decks. It's not going to be a broken thing just because you can pop something. So yeah, I think Blaster is a perfectly fine card come off the list, and eventually we might be able to get back all the rulers at one, and then maybe playing a pure Dragon Ruler deck like it used to when the Dragon Rulers were at one would be a viable option again, because right now it's just not, because we only have one Tempest. The next card is Spellbook of Judgment. Now the theme is the 2013 format, so Spellbook of Judgment is a card that, if we get Engage back to one, do you see a reason why this card should remain banned? Engage, it's much more splashable, and yes, of course, Spellbook of Judgment seems more broken on paper, but this card needs a lot of setup. First of all, you have to either use a search on this card or hard draw the one copy, which if you search it with your Magician or your Secrets, then the rest of your hand has to be very specific in order to be able to activate spell cards and then get the advantage during the end phase, so that basically the only advantage you get for the following turn to play during your opponent's turn is the one monster you're summoning, which is usually going to be Jogen like it used to. But now dealing with a Jogen is very, very easy. There are so many cards that either destroy it or negate its effects without even you being able to respond if they activate something like a Droplet. So even if you have something like a Spellbook of Wisdom set, if your opponent discards a spell card, then you're not going to be able to chain that Spellbook of Wisdom. So I think Spellbook of Judgment is a perfectly fine card. It has been power crept completely. The format has changed so much since then. It's not going to be that broken. It used to be really broken, but right now it would just give spellbooks a slight chance of competing, but they would still do absolutely nothing. It would just make spellbook players a little bit happier. So I think that Konami should finally do it. I know Konami is very reluctant on cards that used to be really broken, but since they were able to bring back a card like Engage not so long after it got banned, I'm pretty sure that something like Spellbook of Judgment can easily come back. Now for the semi-limited list, first of all we have Skullcrabat Joker. This card went to 1 during the previous list, and of course it's Konami. They're not going to put it to 3 right away. They're just going to test the waters at 2, but rest assured that the ban list after, it's going to 3 no matter what. So there's that. Now the next 2 cards, I used to say that these 2 cards should come off the list completely, but they're just at 1 still. So I'm just going to put them on 2 this time and see if that changes the karma of those 2 cards. The first one is Dynamite Knight. I mean, True Draco players, they just can't do anything without their card of demise, and with only 1 diagram, with only those 2 cards at 1, the deck is not consistent at all. So give them at least the best monster, besides Masterpiece, of course, that card cannot come back, but Dynamite, it's the best monster if you exclude Masterpiece, so just give them more copies of that so they can play with the better monsters instead of summoning a Majesty Maiden, which a lot of people don't even like on the field. And the next card is Infernity Archfiend. Infernity in the OCG Archfiend is at 3, it does absolutely nothing, and it would be the same here. Archfiend is not a card that can come up like too often in events like now, because there are so many better combo decks, and that they are more consistent in what they do, they're more resilient, or they're better going second. Infernities, out of all 3 of these things I mentioned, going second is basically the only thing they can do, because they can play so many monsters on the field, they can OTK you very easily, but they are not that consistent with the cards that they have on their axis right now, and they're not resilient at all. If you just get DD Crowd on your Archfiend or something like that, or if you get Veilered on Archfiend, you don't have anything else because inherently your hand is empty, so if you don't get this search follow-up, something like Mirage or your Launcher, then your play stops right there. So yeah, I think Infernity Archfiend can come back, and will probably come back to 3 eventually, but it's just a matter of time, because Konami still seems to be scared of this deck, because it has been able to become meta a lot of times by now, but now this card is not going to do much. And for the unlimited section, we only have 1 card, and that's Double Iris. This is 100% confirmed if you ask me, because come on, they just put it to 2 during the previous list. They're gonna put it to 3. The deck did absolutely nothing, and every time something goes to 2 and it does nothing, it's definitely going to 3 during the next ban list. So yep, there's nothing to question about that here. So yep guys, I think that this ban list is not going to be a big one. Out of all the changes I mentioned, most of them are probably not going to happen, because it's Konami. They're very scared for certain cards, so we might see like 3, 4, maybe 5 cards in the ban list, and some of them might be completely irrelevant. But as for the hits, I think that there's not much needed to be done. If you disagree, if you think that any other cards are problematic and should be hit, then comment down below. below. Let's have a discussion and see what other changes we can make to make the game even better, because the game is so good and we are waiting for 2 more potential competitive archetypes in Flanderies and Sword Soul during the Burst of Destiny set, so the game can only become better as long as those decks don't overtake the format completely. But as we've seen in the OCG, the decks are good, but they're not that good, so they're just going to become tier 1 or tier 2 contenders while adding more variety to the game, but not destroying it completely. So yep, that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming videos, and we'll see you next time.